get this bonus, but the order list will.
Do you want a bonus of a dick pic? And then you're just like, there you go. Just put it on stream.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Gov.
Put it on. Literally, the first thing that comes through is you want a bonus of a dick pic, and you'll put it on stream.
You're damn right.
That's the first thing people are going to hear when they listen to the podcast.
Unsolicited.
Oh, link in the show notes.
Then they click that and it takes them to a picture of the greatest.
Sticker photo.
Let's not ruin it for you.
Yeah.
But it is, in fact, one of the greatest dick pics of all time.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Well, link in the show notes. You can bask in the glory of it in your own time.
It's the best.
Can you hear one on Suffolk Cram?
Skazz, yes.
Welcome to 217 of the Randers podcast.
God blimey, 217?
217, yeah. Cool blimey, Governor.
217 episodes, Gov.
Yeah, Gov.
Innit, Gov? It's like when Zabel wanted to say brother all the time in Eurotruck. But we're too British. So you got to say Gov, innit, Gov?
Yeah, but I guess I had to explain to them that it's Eurotruck, not American Truck Simulator. You don't say brother all the time. You're the wrong. You're not even the right continent.
Bless him. Bless him.
Yeah. That'll be coming out shortly. Eurotruck Simulator. That was. I have to say that was a hilarious 2 hours or so.
Oh, dude, I can't believe your stream didn't work. I borrowed your stream. The last like 30 minutes. You only had 30 minutes of stream on it, and you had no audio on it.
So the audio I know is an issue that I've saw on highlight the other day, which I'm setting up. That is an issue where that's my fault. That is cause with OBS. Cause my OBS now splits my audio track. Two separate tracks.
You didn't set that device to be recorded in the split.
Yeah, so it's now it's only sending one half. It's only seeing one half the track crossed, which is why it's missing half its audio.
I forgot to give you my multi-track. I just gave you the mix down again.
Oh well, I'll work around it.
Fair that.
But I know the issue and I'll get it fixed.
Fair that.
Now I know the issue. I didn't actually know it was an issue, to be honest, because I hadn't thought about it.
Sure.
Well,
I mean, if I had to be honest with you, the audio's all right because I pulled your stream down, all 30 odd minutes of it. I was gutted, mate. Thankfully, that 30 odd minutes covered the final incident.
Which final incident? Because I lost track.
The one where you caused that massive tailback and Zaber gave you a bit of a nudge.
Oh, that one, yeah.
Because I wanted to cut between like the 3 or 4 different moments we all had on the thing. So I made like a little YouTube like portrait video short of some of those moments, or a moment, because that was only that last one I could get. But fuck, I was in stitches watching that back.
Mate, you'll get to experience the joy of watching me turn around on the motorway and drive the wrong way at the motorway to get back to the turning.
Mate, I was watching you. I was on the overpass looking down, watching you cut up that slipway. So what are you doing?
I couldn't be asked to go the long way round, so I decided to turn round.
Because that was right near the end, weren't it?
That wasn't close. I was about halfway through, I think that was.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think so. I tell you what, I don't know if it's in Eurotruck, but I would like to think it was, and if it's not, it should be in, is spectator mode.
Oh, that'd be neat.
So when like you guys finish your deliveries, you could switch to spectator mode and watch what I'm doing and like so forth.
I don't know if there is. It'd be nice. I mean, if there isn't one, it would be nice if there was a mod for it, because there are mods for practically everything else in Eurotruck.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Although I was somewhat annoyed that you didn't have, because I couldn't use any of the things that I had installed on mine. I was like, mate, I really wanted to go in there with my Bochi the truck, because I finally got the Volvo, so I could put the Bochi the Rock like kind of livery on it or whatever. Have all the paintwork done. I was like, excellent. And then we go in and it's like, oh, my truck is now green. Great. I should have really spent the extra money and got the paintwork done, but I didn't think I'd need to because it would look cool, and now it looks green.
Oh, it's
But,
all right.
But the audio for your edit should be fine because when I cut mine together, that was all right.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Yeah, I've not listened to them, but I'll pull them into Premiere tomorrow once I've finished Left 4 Dead. All caught up.
Almost done.
Nearly caught up. I'll never let myself get behind again.
You get to see the victory of Coach.
Teamwork. Coach, yeah. Well, I'm up to the bit where me and Zaber almost made it. Like literally on the because there's like a little you're on like all the pier and there's like a little ramp down to where the helicopter was.
Yeah.
And I got as far as there, and then I got caught by a hunter. Zaber follows me, and he rather than carry on down to the pier, to the helicopter, he tries to save me.
Oh no!
Trouble is, at that point, the hunter had killed me and then jumped onto him.
Oh no!
Whereas if he had kept, the hunter probably would have caught up with him, but if he kept going, he might have had a chance to get into the helicopter and finish the map off.
Mate.
That far level was intense and really good.
For sure. And until you have 2 decoys, 2 meaty decoys.
Poor Zaber and Rochelle.
Yeah, I ain't waiting about.
I've learned some things about myself. I've learned that when the chips are down, when it really is up against it, I will leave my friends behind.
That's good to know, man.
And I won't feel guilty about it either.
Not at all. It's like, no, mate, I've won. I've got the good score. Get fucked. It's like, thanks, Ram.
It's like, I'm not going to have to save them. Realistically, it's not going to happen, so I'm just going to go for it. I think I like to consider myself more practical in this scenario. I look where I think, there's no chance I'm going to be able to save him, so I'm just going to jump on the boat. Like in the last one, where I think my favourite level of all ones we've done Left 4 Dead 2. This Left 4 Dead 2, we've gone from Euro Truck 2 to Left 4 Dead 2.
Lots of 2s.
Lots of 2s, yes. Is that one where we had to go to get the diesel for the boat, so we had to go through that sugarcane factory. And then we came back in the rain, and it was so atmospheric. I love that because it's so atmospheric coming back.
That some of them jumps. Did we even have to make half of those jumps getting there?
Not on the way in. No, there's a jump we had to do on the way back, which you didn't have to do, which we did on the way in, which you didn't need to do.
Right.
But coming back through it and back through the factory, we get to the last bit, and there's this bit where the tank arrives. It takes you first. Then Zaber tries to take on the tank. It then takes him out. And at this point, I realise that you're both down. I ain't going to be able to get you because I'm not going to be able to take the tank and the holder by myself.
Is that the one where we're on top of the shop or the roof?
Petrol station, yeah. I think, bye guys, and I run towards the boat and just get on the boat and leave you all behind.
Bastard. Love you, man.
Yeah, I know, but don't put me dying as well.
No, you do have a fair point. We were already dead. You still had limbs attached.
Well, you mean you weren't dead? You're on the ground screaming in agony pain. But
what were you going to do? You weren't a doctor. You're a businessman.
Exactly.
You're used to making these hard decisions.
Exactly. Yeah. Look, it was a hard decision, but to sacrifice all your lives. But I can live with it.
Sure.
It's a sacrifice I was willing to make.
That was actually quite fun, given that Left 4 Dead was getting a bit long.
Left 4 Dead 2, I think the level, you could definitely tell they took a level up in their level design.
Yeah.
They were a lot more intense.
That wasn't the word for it. Jesus Christ. We were like trying to get away from the carnival clowns.
Oh, that was
and that alley run we had to do.
Yes.
Before we got to that safe house, so you had to go straight along, hard left again, and then into that little.
Yeah. Oh. That was like, and what I love most about that is Zaber goes into the safe house, and then you go down. He leaves the safe house. Like, no, get the fuck back in there. Because as long as you make it, we'll get through to the next level. And then he opens the door and lets a tank in.
Bless him.
It's like, it's really good. You want to try and save everybody, saver, but we can finish the level. Just keep going.
Yeah, well, like we were stuck on that for quite some time, weren't we? And then just
Well, I think that was the first time where we encountered the infinite horde.
yeah,
Where you just don't stop. And I think we got so used to you fight through the rave and it stops, you move on, that we just assumed the rave was going to stop. And it didn't.
It went very old school PS2 on us, didn't it? Whereby in a lot of old like PS2 shooters and early PS3 shooters, if you like sat in one place and just picked people off, they would keep spawning in. However, if you passed a certain point on the map, they'd stop spawning in behind you and start spawning in from the next spot. So in some cases,
Medal of Honor was a bug for that.
Yeah, Medal of Honor, Killzone, stuff like that. Like in some cases, you didn't even have to fire a shot. You could just run if you were, savvy enough. Not like if you knew the map well enough, you could just go, and the game would just constantly be loading to the next. Not so much like it's not a checkpoint as in like a save point, but the next spawn point for the enemies would just keep on triggering behind. And the guys that were behind you that you've run past just kind of go, whatever, I'm going down the pub.
Or they chase you from behind because sometimes you could outrun the game and it get really confused. So Medal of Honor was a bug for that. They did a lot of it was sort of like back because they really wanted to make a film in a game. And so they decided to do a lot of scripting and stuff, but it meant that it did some weird things. And early Call of Duties were like that as well.
Yeah. Wasn't Medal of Honor done by...
Call of Duty was ex-Medal of Honor devs.
Yeah.
That's why they were so similar in many ways.
Well, throughout there, I quite like the World War COD games. Don't get me wrong, like Modern Warfare and that was fun, but the early COD games, they were,
I like the early COD games. I felt for the early first COD game, because for a lot of people, I think a lot of people assume the first COD game was Modern Warfare.
Yeah.
But the first COD game, where you split between the three different campaigns, the British, the American, and the Russian campaign, and the Russian campaign where you're having to which is basically enemy at the gates at the start, where you're given a rifle but no ammunition. Or ammunition, no rifle, I can't remember which one it is, but you're given basically half what you need. And if you turn around and go back, you'll start getting shot by your own side. Yeah. That was just pretty. That was really atmospheric. Really sort of sold it. That was just real great fun.
What was your favourite campaign out of the classic Call of Duties?
I'm going to go for the Russian one.
Yeah, same. Yeah. So some of those fights towards the end were fucking phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Like when you have to try and find one of them's got the German sniper hidden behind the corrugated iron. And you have to kind of look for the flash to try and shoot him through the metalwork.
I think it's a long time since I played the original COD.
I'm sure that was one of the early Call of Duties, but little moments like that, and running into the building and trying to take it, and then get to the roof to raise the flag, and absolutely amazing.
Don't you at the end of the Russian campaign? Do you storm Berlin at the end of the Russian campaign, the original COD?
Berlin.
Where you because Russia took Berlin, didn't they?
I don't know.
Was that in the COD?
I really don't know.
I say it's been a long... Because I played that... Wow, that must have been early 2000s. Or mid-2000s. I played that. So that's going on... That's 15 odd years ago. So I'm going to look up the original Call of Duty. So I played it not long after... I didn't play when it came out, but I played it not long after it came out.
My first taste of Call of Duty was on Xbox, on console. I have since played them through again on PC. I actually went through a big Call of Duty marathon. But there is just something about the old World War II shooters. I haven't played any of the Battlefield went back to World War 1 or 2, didn't it? And Call of Duty went back to World War.
Battlefield did a World War. One of the more recent Battlefields has been World War One.
Yeah, and I think Call of Duty did one as well.
Call of Duty was 2003. So I won't say I would play it not long. I wasn't long after it came out. I played it. So I won't say I probably played it 2004. So I probably played it best part of 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the thing about World War II shooters and games is what makes them quite fun is all the weapons are a bit crap.
Yeah.
You know, trouble with sort of modern warfare, everything's got to a stage where it's high sophisticated, highly engineered, high technological. It's not so fun because working with sort of like stuff that you ain't got like old fancy night vision gear and that sort of stuff. You're working with just basic. I mean, Medal of Honor. When you first get hold of like the assault, I think it's in Medal of Honor 2, where you basically get an assault rifle, like an early assault rifle.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like a game-changing experience because up to that point you've been using like bolt action rifles, maybe the old Tommy gun as a little SMG, but then you suddenly get this German assault rifle, and it's like a super powerful gun in the game, and it's amazing. You just had the bar in Medal of Honor, but everything's just perhaps slightly sort of like on the edge to what technology could be,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what makes it fun.
Made it feel gritty.
Yeah. You haven't got a satellite overhead telling you where everybody is.
Yeah, I will say that was one of the things that kind of... It's neat, don't get me wrong, that's neat in, say, COD 4, Modern Warfare 2 and 3, and like even the Black Ops games and that, but just... You start to feel like you are that one guy just mowing down hundreds and hundreds. It's not about you and your team, it's that one guy. You could tell that it was one of those... Why would I play a game where I'm rocking around with a tin hat and a single shot rifle when I could be like Master Chief? And apparently some of the devs had that issue back in the day when Halo came out, because a lot of people were like, why would we play, Medal of Honor and COD and play that old-timey slow-paced shooter when we could play as a big hulking Marine carrying buckets of guns and loads of ammo and big explosions and stuff like that. But I think there's something to be said about World War 1 and 2. And as you say, the way that it wasn't... It's going to sound like really terrible, but like there wasn't as much like protection. There wasn't as much technology.
Well, no, because I know so in those sort of games generally this is pre-generating health in the game, so from both game and obviously real life there's no regenerating health, but in the games
believe it or not,
but in the games you had to basically be more cautious. Storming Omaha Beach, and I think in Medal of Honor you could easily get killed, and that was you start the level again. Whereas if Modern Warfare did that, you just take cover in a bunker and you'd be all right.
Yeah.
I
mean, some of those as well were really fucking tense because of it, because of limited health kits and all that. Because there were some times when you had to defend a bunker and waves of enemies would come at you.
Yeah.
It's tense.
It is. It was very tense. Very tense. I think it's also about sort of World War One, World War Two, one stuff is, there's no satellites. There's no voice with an internet connection in your ear telling you everything that's going on. It's you need to get here and take that. Good luck.
Yeah.
So
it seemed a bit more real as well. Do you think that float in that you've read about these things in the history books? Yeah, you've seen the films.
Like
you could almost pick out a place. This is happening in XYZ city, whereas I don't mean to sound like a twat, but like Modern Warfare and that, where a lot of it takes place overseas, you don't know any of that stuff.
No. It's like a different world.
Yeah.
There's more of a connection to if you're in Europe or America, but I'd say especially in Europe, there's more of a connection to World War One.
Yeah.
Because you can. I mean, even around here, you can still find places where there's war damage.
Yeah.
But no one's ever bothered to repair. They still occasionally find unexploded World War bombs.
Yeah.
They found one in They found one in Yarmouth a few weeks ago. Unfortunately, it didn't go off. So
what happened? What happened to Yarmouth? The Germans finally got them.
Yeah, they.
What happened to the new bridge? Well, turns out the Germans had a time machine.
Yeah, I mean we have a more of a link. It's not like one step removed. That one of us. Oh, so the sort of equipment and stuff they used is something that we could still encounter day to day now. Not just the guns, which obviously, but in modern warfare, where they got sort of like satellite monitoring, all that sort of fancy gizmos and stuff, which is based on real world tech. We haven't got that at our level. We don't see that, so it seems crucially strange. Whereas having a map and a compass, we've all played with maps and compasses, so it sort of like makes it real.
It's more human.
Yeah.
You know that it's just a guy in a jacket, some ganky ass fucking boots, a single shot rifle that you could buy for 40 quid off the internet.
Yeah. Nicely done.
And basically a bunch of people who he'd probably not long met.
Yeah.
People who were barely even old enough, who didn't even make the choice to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Terrified to be in a foreign country.
And I think also there was no one person. There's no like if one side has XYZ, it's like there's no sort of like if you have this advantage, then you basically have advantage over everything. So nowadays, air superiority. If you get air superiority, you basically it's very hard to then lose. Because you take out the enemy tanks, you take out the enemy gun places. It's very easy. And nothing can really take you back. Because even the most advanced sort of anti-air stuff is not great, relatively speaking. It's great against missiles and stuff, but not so great against aircraft. Whereas then, you go around in a tank, you can still get took out by infantry. You could do a lot of damage, but you could still vulnerable. An aircraft, even aircraft then was still very vulnerable.
So didn't they effectively napalm tanks back in the early World Wars because of all the gaps in the metalwork and that? Like you could just splatter the damn thing and just burn people inside alive.
I believe something like could definitely happen. You could also obviously they weren't designed so much with like ammunition compartments where the ammo was kept separately. So if you cook off the ammo, it'd cook off inside the tank, which isn't great. I think they used to like climb on top of tanks and like throw grenades and stuff in them. Yeah. It was just there. If everything was very vulnerable, even if you had advantages, you were still vulnerable. So, I mean, obviously it's we're talking from a games point of view. What's interesting, but as a thing to live through, it's horrific. But we just don't see it like that. We just don't see. And I think it's just the sort of scale of it as well, which makes it interesting.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. In like Modern Warfare and that, you are like a 5-man team?
Yeah.
Taking on everyone.
Yes.
You play Medal of Honor, and you play early Call of Duty. You are literally seeing hundreds of guys storming the beaches.
Yeah.
It's not just you. You're seeing your team die and fall back down the cliffs.
Yeah. And in Call of Duty, you are just regular soldiers.
Yeah.
You're not like these days. In any shooter game, you're always the elite people. You're always you're the most advanced elite team out there. You're not just a regular soldier. It's just like, well, off you go. Good luck.
No special training. Like oh mate, he's a radio operator. That's basically as far as it goes.
Yeah.
There's your medic.
You dropped into Army territory. No, these guys here, these are the ultra elite guys. They're all they all qualify top of their class somehow in the same class. You all qualify joint top.
And you got wait,
So-
and then people are like, "Well, hang on a minute. How can you prove that my team is that badass? You've got Soap McTavish on your team, motherfucker, and Captain Price."
I think it's actually in some ways it's a reflection of films.
Yeah.
Because you look at films from like sort of like 1980s action films. Generally speaking, the people in those action films were just like regular people who just like had no special skills. I mean, John McClane in Die Hard is
Hard.
just a cop.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a cop. It's
Mel
just a cop. He's
Gibson
nothing-
and Mel Gibson and
Mel Gibson and Mel
Danny Glover.
Gibson.
Yeah, they were just like regular guys in
Yeah.
like Lethal Weapon. They were just two regular guys. All right, Martin Riggs was supposed to be a crack shot, but outside of that, he was just a regular guy that could get jumped.
Yeah, but now in every action film, the hero protagonist is like, "Oh, I'm an ex," and it's usually an ex-marine because for some reason, apparently, Marines are the best thing ever.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm an ex-marine. Oh yeah, I graduated top of the academy, and oh, I'm the best shot and all this sort of stuff. It's like that just makes you boring.
Yeah, the wife and I watched a film about something like that recently, and I said, "Oh yeah, this guy literally takes an entire base by himself. And It's
Yeah.
not like he's rocking around like stealthily or anything. He is running,
Yeah.
like John Wicking it up, and it's like, nah, mate, just no."
Yeah, and I think the disconnect is also that in reality, you wouldn't in reality, even if you were a elite special forces whatever, you're not taking a base up by yourself.
No,
It's
God,
not by running around. I think heroes tend to get so injured anymore. Like by the end of Fly Hard, John McClane is basically in agony.
Well, yeah,
He can barely walk. He's got his feet all cut up with glass. He's only basically adrenaline keeping him going. Whereas in a lot of other films, the hero gets shot. It's like, oh, it's pain. He's on the ground for like 5 minutes. He's up and about. And he's like, no noticed.
Let's be fair as well, though. Die Hard, that was one guy. I guess what 10 people,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that was the whole film. 10 guys. Might have
Yeah.
been a bit more, might have been a bit less, but in a modern action film, 10 guys is the intro.
Yeah. And he's 10 guys, but he has the advantage that it's over 5 or 6 floors of a building it's set
Yeah.
over.
Yeah.
So he's got them spread out. So he has to take I think he very rarely takes them on more than 2. I think it's 2 to 1 is about the most he ever takes on.
Yeah.
And normally it's 1 to 1. He sort of has to be careful and plan how he's going to take each one out. It's not.
Well, I mean,
now,
you'd
it'd be
have to, wouldn't you?
you would. You would. You're up against people who are probably as well trained as you are.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've got to be careful. Whereas, again, as you say now in a modern film, he'd have like 100 of them come down, he'd just bounce out, shoot them all. They'd do their clips at him, and he'd be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's it. And that basically has filled through into modern games.
Yeah.
You are, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's obviously in all games, you'll be shooting hundreds of people down as you run around because that's what makes a shooter fun. Shooting lots of people would be pretty
Yeah.
boring if like
It's a
the shooter
power
you only-
fantasy.
Yeah, it's a power fantasy, yeah. But they just seems like it just seems to be I want every time I want to go into an engagement in a shooter, I want to feel like I could come off very badly if I'm not careful.
Yeah.
And I want to sort of feel like I get through by the skin of my teeth.
Well, it's funny you say that, actually, because do you remember Max Payne
Yes.
on PC and PlayStation? And I think it was on the original Xbox as well. So me and my mate DeWald, we kind of went a bit hardcore on Max Payne again recently. And
cool.
Max Payne's fantastic for that because Max isn't anything special, with the exception of the ability to like kind of slow down time, like the old bullet time effect.
And jump sideways.
Oh yeah, mate. Like seriously, man. Max has got that. What the hell's the guy's name? Like the old Hong Kong police films where like they jump and it is all slow motion, it's just flying through the air. Yeah. Yeah. Just like diving through the air, firing with your dual Berettas, taking people out. Like. Max ain't anything special. All right, yeah, he is taking on hundreds of guys, but if you run into a room with like 3 people, Max can get wrecked.
Yeah.
You have to be ready for it. Whereas if you're playing a modern shooter, you can pretty much just close your eyes, run into a room, and go.
Yeah. I like I like shooters where getting the drop on somebody is the important part. You know, if you run and gun, you're just gonna be. I mean, I like run and gun shooters as well. Don't get me wrong. In the same way, I like sort of like hard hitting court dramas and Die Hard, which is So you can like both things, different reasons, but I just want to hark back to those days.
Can I say a throwback that I enjoyed? Well, it's not really. It's like a half and half, right? So some of the old mechanics of the old World War shooters, and then kind of the modern, like, oh fuck, balls to the wall, kill everyone. When they rebooted Wolfenstein,
all right,
because you had health kits in that, you didn't have regenerating health. So you were, whilst you were an absolute beast of a man, you know, you had to be careful, because if you got shot up or caught by something you didn't realize was going to be there, your health would just turn into nothingness. And it's not like you could just hide, take cover, and wait for it to come back, like, say, Soap McTavish, where the bullets just fall out of his flesh, or Master Chief, where you just stand there taking, you know, hundreds and hundreds of bullets. It was, I thought it was, and it gave you, in many cases, a sense of hopelessness as well, because you were going up against, like, it was a World War II scenario, against the odds, fucking a group of people with far superior tech on their side.
Yeah.
But you know, I thought that was neat. But yeah, you're right. I'd say modern shooters have gone the way of the modern action film, and it's kind of sad. They're all very samey now.
Yeah.
If you play Battlefield and you play COD, they're very much the same these days.
The Found Thought, I mean, there are still like sort of the milsims like out there, like armor and stuff, but then they're very few and far between now. They don't sell as well. They just don't sell as well. People don't.
They want balls to the wall action, not.
Yeah, people like to want to feel like superheroes, and that's fun. I mean, it's fun when you feel like that. But sometimes you want just that little bit of grittiness.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're just sound like two old men shouting at the sun now. In my day, Sonny, you
back
didn't have
in my day,
we didn't have this fan called regenerating health.
I thought that'd be a fad.
Yeah. In my day, we could carry 10 weapons, one for each number key. Not these two you have to switch between.
Oh mate, them were the days. Them were the days. Well, that's like, but that was the thing. That like actually... every modern day shooter, the main characters, even if it is Soap, Price, Ghost, all that, regular guys who have been trained at the top of the game, right? They're basically Duke Nukem, some over the top action hero.
Yes.
But I will say, because obviously Duke Nukem came out before before Medal of Honor, but
a little bit before, yeah.
Just a wee bit. Or like, you know, or the modern day Doom guy, you know, they've blurred the lines a bit. They are fun. I do enjoy Modern Warfare and Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 3. I enjoy those. Even Modern Warfare 2 and 3, where it gets a bit more hyped up, I do enjoy them. But I enjoy them more for the characters, the character interactions, than the shooty bits.
Yeah.
Like, do you remember the sniper mission with Price in Modern Warfare, I think?
I've only played the training mission in Modern Warfare.
Oh, mate. So there's a mission with them.
I know of the mission because it became like a thing everybody talked about. It's in Pripyat, isn't it?
Yeah. That mission's gorgeous. I mean, it does go a bit balls to the wall, but at a point, it does feel pretty fucking tense, and you're like, I don't know if I'm going to make it. You know? Yeah. When a modern shooter gets that, that's great. But the trouble is they haven't really been able to hold that. You don't feel human anymore in a modern shooter. Like in the, was it called Advanced Warfare, the one where they go to space for some reason.
Yeah, I think it is Advanced Warfare.
Or because you had the other one where you had like exoskeletons and stuff because they wanted to cash in on Titanfall. Whatever. Like that one was okay ish. And then you went to the let's go to space. It's like, nah, mate. Just at this point, I don't give a shit anymore. And then they decided that because people were getting sick and tired of going to the future, let's go back to World War II.
Yeah, we'll play Soap McTavish's great-great-great-grandfather.
We will. But Soap McTavish's great-great-great-grandfather will be an absolute badass like Soap.
Yeah.
With his single-shot rifle mowing down hundreds of Germans.
Yeah. He's got a Volvo with 10,000 rounds in it. How'd that work?
Yeah, could you imagine that? He's got a 6-shot and he is literally just fucking spamming it like a madman. It's like, right, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. What? Why isn't he stopping to reload? He's just standing there firing. Anyway.
Yeah.
Ram, we've gone off on a tangent again.
Never.
What have you been playing, mate? Call of Duty?
No. I finished Call of Cthulhu, which is like Call of Duty. It's like Call of Duty in many ways. And that's got Call of in the name of it.
Yes. If you were just to quickly glance at the name on a shelf, not that anyone does that anymore, you could accidentally pick it up and go home.
It's the game your grandmother buys you by accident. Thinking
I will admit,
he liked that colour.
Some of those were fantastic purchases, though.
Yeah, I think you like that Call of game. Here it is, Call of Cthulhu. I know, have fun.
Yeah. Thanks, Gran.
Thanks. Finished that. Very good. Enjoyed watch the end. Stealth bits are a bit meh. But overall, I enjoyed the plot. The storyline kept me going. I really enjoyed it. So good there. So I finished it on Monday. And today I loaded up a game that was given away for free on Epic a while ago. Star Wars Squadrons. Which is
the space one.
It is the space one where you play as two characters.
Can I just throw out there? I know how that sounded completely ridiculous. I played Star Wars. Oh, is that the space one?
Yeah.
The one where you fly about and there's the vehicle combat one.
Yeah, you basically switch between a TIE fighter pilot and a X-Wing pilot, but you do get other ships later on, I believe. And it's semi-realistic in how it plays. It's because space doesn't work like pure. I think that's not true as much these days as it used to be. But when Star Wars was filmed, people assumed they placed it that a spacecraft worked like they're just planes in the air, which is not how spacecraft work. No. You can do cool things like you can spin around on the spots and all that sort of stuff in space, but they basically didn't play it like that. So and what have you? It's realistic. Where Star Wars Squadrons is sort of strutting the line between giving the feeling of how it plays in the original films, and also being a little more accurate. It's no Elite Dangerous. It's no Elite Dangerous. If Elite Dangerous is Arm Assault, Star Wars Squadrons is COD. That's probably sort of
right.
So you do have things where you can sort of like if you can drop your throttle right down and spin your ship on the spot and spin round to target the enemy and that sort of stuff, and you can, but your ship will just stop by itself. It will break by itself. As soon as you put your throttle down to 0, you stop, rather than you having to like decelerate.
Yeah, drifting off and then having to correct and then thrust again to then stop yourself from moving in that direction. And
but other than that, plays like a sort of arcade's the one word. It's a bit more in depth than that. But other than that, plays like a really neat space shooter. You know, it's set. I'm now going to because I'm not very up on Star Wars lore. It must be set. So I think it's in the first of the original trilogy, A New Hope. The Death Star destroys the planet Alderaan, and I think that's in the first Soul. Because Obi-Wan Kenobi mentions it. He's in the first one, and the initial part takes place. Your TIE fighter takes place just after that's happened, and you're set out in a TIE squadron to basically hunt down escaping refugees from that planet, and as you're sort of chasing them down, hunting them down, and so forth, your squad leader defects and decides to join the rebels because he just can't live with it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so you spend time, and and the whole sort of mission you go up to. The missions are quite in depth and quite long, so it's as you saw from the point you get there, you're flying around, getting to jump points, jumping to destinations. You're scanning ships, looking for it to find the one you want, or tackling it. But yeah, he defects, and then you switch the perspective of the TIE fighter pilot, so the X-wing pilot. And you basically, your first mission is you basically sort of playing the other side, where you end up in combat just after he's defected, and you basically escort him back to your base, and then eventually he becomes like a leader in the rebels. He becomes like for the X-wing side, he's your like commanding officer, telling you what to do and who to go and where to go. And you eventually then start the main game where you become part of the Vanguard Squadron, and there's 5 of you, and you basically are part of this sort of like squad where you're going to go off and you're going to do the main sort of fighting and shooting and fly about. The gameplay itself is really funny. It does a great job of making you feel like you're in one of the spaceships, particularly as it has VR support. So you can, and I play it with my Oculus on, goes off, and there's something about seeing in a cockpit when you're flying around, sort of like suddenly you lock it on, you can literally see him shooting at the opponent TIE fighters as you go flying past, putting your throttle down to 0, quickly spinning yourself around just to throttle back up again to go straight at him again and sort of do strafing runs and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's really great. I've said to you before, when it comes to VR stuff, I can only sort of play sort of 2.5 hours at a time, because then I start getting a bit of a headache, so I have to sort of stop. But it works really well in VR. The cockpits have been designed to make them VR friendly. So the screens are all fairly big, very obvious, so it's nice and easy. So it's because sometimes if you play like Flight Simulator in VR, it's cockpits. Sometimes the dials are hard to read.
Oh god,
yeah. This doesn't do it. Everything's really designed to make it friendly to read and see what's going on, so you always know what's going on. And it just works well. It's nothing quite like like the experience of like you're hunting someone, you're just looking at the top of your cockpit, staring. You can get them inside. You're just sort of slowing yourself down, rolling and spinning yourself around to line up to catch up to them, so you can shoot them. It's just remarkably good fun. The combat, the battles are very hectic. There's like 4 or 5 of you on one side. There's usually like sort of dozen of each. So it's just constant ships flying everywhere, gunfire constantly firing. You can get missile locks, and if you get missile lock, you either have to try and slow down and sort of like make a sharp turn so it misses you, or you have to fire countermeasures. Other than that, it plays very okay. So your ships have just got a health bar from 100 to 0, and then you blow up. So you don't have to worry about like damage to specific parts of your ship. In the X-wing, you can actually like divert power to shield. You can like divert which direction your shields are powering up.
Okay.
So you can like say, I want shields at the rear or shields at the front. So if, say, for example, like you've had a bit of a bite, you might say you decide to sort of like put some distance between you and your opponents, divert power to your rear shield so you can thrust away from them. You can also divert power between your main power between, you can have it balanced, or you can divert power to your lasers, in which case your engine power is lower, your shield power is lower, but your lasers recharge quicker.
Sure.
So as you fire, they'll recharge quicker, so you can fire fast bursts. You can divert power to engines, which means you can maneuver faster, you can speed faster, maneuver faster. Or you can divert power to shields, which gives you more defenses. So you'll be switching between these different modes as you're fighting and flying around to what you need. So I need to catch up with this guy. Like power to engines, full speed, and I'm getting close now. I'll switch power to lasers so I can get some power shooting on them and so forth. So it's got all the sort of also like the sort of like tropes you see in sci-fi films, like where they show like that power to shields, that sort of it's there, to make you feel like it, but it's more the giving the feeling of it, not necessarily. It's when they've had a decision between, do we make this a bit realistic or do we make it fun? I won't say realism isn't fun, but we're going to take a choice. We're going to make it the fun choice and make it feel like we want to feel like you're a pilot in the show in the films, and it works really well. And the levels are gorgeous. You know, the scale of the ships you're fighting is great. When you're sort of like spinning around like a star destroyer. As the battles are just so hectic and chaotic, you're just constantly looking around trying to get a target and running around. But it is amazingly neat. I've done the first 3 missions. They've all been fun so far. So,
is that the one that came out during the pandemic?
I believe so.
Because that was when there was a massive shortage on HOTASs, and it also supports dual stick, I believe.
It definitely supports HOTAS.
Because people were buying the Thrustmaster. I'm just going to make it up, like the 3000 or whatever it is, which was just the stick. And you'd see them like sat on a swivel chair with their sticks mounted on both sides and their VR headsets, and there were loads of VR content creators at the time saying, "Oh yeah, this is like the next greatest thing in VR," and then they played it for a week and then never went back to
it. So basically the way it's fairly well done how you configure controls, because as we know, they can be a bit fiddly when it comes to flight sticks. So you basically set in your options, you basically set an order of preference for your different controllers. So it picked up when I first loaded it up, it decided that my steering wheel was my primary flight controller. Bit awkward. But I was able to go in the option menu and say, no, okay, the joystick is controller 1, throttle controller 2. I couldn't say don't ignore the wheel, but I could set to controller 3, say. And then when you go into your options, you basically can say when you sort of map the commands and so forth, you basically say which controller you're going to use on 2 or 3. So you could have 2 flight sticks, for example, because it will seem as different and take inputs differently. So you could do the old dual flight sticks if you really wanted to. This is why I missed the fact that my old joystick I used to use, you had a yaw functionality on it where you could twist the stick, whereas my new one doesn't do that.
Sure.
So I've got no yaw command, as it were, but I've mapped that to the x-axis and then put roll on a separate controller, because actually yaw's more important than roll.
Mm-hmm.
It's just they've also done the level design is also very well done to sort of feel it. So the bit where you're chasing the sort of guy when he defects, there's a couple bits where you have to fly through a door that's closing, and you just sort of aim just right and narrowly spin through it, otherwise you'll blow up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's straight out of a film. It's just straight out of a film. And that door will close if you're not quick enough. It will close on you, and you will miss it. Well, you will hit it, I should say. If you're not, it's but really neat. But yeah, that sort of VR is great. Really sells it. And it's got a multiplayer mode as well, where you can do dogfights and stuff.
Sure.
Very neat game. Very, very neat game. I've had a lot more fun with those because I'm not a big Star Wars fan, but spaceships, spaceships, it's great fun.
The world has been designed in just such a way that you don't need to. Kind of like Elite Dangerous, you don't need any prior logic, any prior knowledge of the lore to get into it. You just absorb yourself in the atmosphere and go for it.
Yeah, the game just gives you a break at the start. The game doesn't assume you know much about Star Wars. It gives you enough information. It'll just say, it'll give you sort of a start where it'll tell you that old Darth Vader shot Alderaan and what happened, all this sort of stuff. That's all you need to know, because to be fair, that's all the background you need, really. Even if you don't, you know Darth Vader is. Everybody knows who Darth Vader is.
Mm-hmm. As you said in the last episode, through cultural osmosis, yeah.
So you know who he is, so it's all right, so it's fine. And you'll get past it, it's great. I like the fact that it feels quite old school in many ways. So when you're in your hangar and stuff, you don't walk around your hangar. Instead, you sort of look around and you'll have little hot spots like the doors and stuff. You click on the door, will animate open. Then the screen will fade to black and it'll fade open. You're in the other room, like an old school game. Obviously, it's in 3D. It's in sort of proper 3D. That feels really old school. It feels quite neat. The cutscenes when you're on VR, because when I play VR games before the cut, when they do cuts, they tend to take your whole field of vision up.
Yeah.
What this does here is it basically makes it look like you're sitting in a cinema, so it puts the cinematic sort of slightly away of you, makes it slightly curved, like you're sitting in the back row of a cinema.
Mm.
And that's your cinematic playing in front of you for your.
That's pretty neat.
That's neat. Yeah, that's the. I don't know if that's just just technologically where it's fallen or that, but it feels deliberate. So they thought it's a game where the people who've made it have obviously thought about it and they've decided to do something a bit interesting, but different. It's I'm so far I'm having great fun with it. I'll look forward to playing it again. But like I say, unfortunately, my time's all been limited to about a couple of hours at a time. But I'll enjoy those 2 hours. That's all that matters. I did have a bit of issue getting the controllers set. The controller they had a default setup, but also it doesn't know what joystick you want. So when you've got like a HOTAS, it can be because they've got so many buttons on them. It can get a bit confused. So I did remap the HOTAS and controls on it, and unmapped anything attached to the steering wheel.
That's a bit.
One thing you can do, which is nice, is there's a lot of games where if you have a joystick plugged in, the game uses them. When you like, say, for example, when you're not staying in your ship and you're like out and about, it'll still take input in and try and control the character in it, like MechWarrior did. This you can actually go in and say, you can basically say no, ignore all for moving around the hangar. I don't want you to take any inputs from any of the joysticks at all. Just let me do it with a mouse. So all I want you to do, just let me use the mouse. That's all you need to do. Ignore all other inputs.
That's all you need to do.
Yes. Nothing else. Just let me do it, and it works. They're very smart. They've split up the control sections into different areas. So there's control for your menus, control for your things. So you can use same commands twice, but they're like separate, so they won't overlap.
Sure.
But yeah, it's very, very, very neat, and the ships feel good as well. You have to start your when the first sort of level you launch, you have to like boot your ship up and start it up and sort of watch everything power on. It's really neatly done. The ships feel really good. They're really nicely modeled inside. They feel like you're piloting an actual spaceship as well, which is neat. It's really good fun. So that's Star Wars Squadrons.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I can't stand anything that you have to remap in VR, though, man. Jesus Christ.
Luckily, there aren't many controls to remap because it is a very simple. It's not like Elite Dangerous, where it's like 1,000 controls. It's basically to confirm your access for your joystick access, your throttle access, and then it's things like change. You've got like 3 buttons to fire things, 1 for countermeasures, and then it's just buttons to control your targeting computer, control your shield diversion. I mean, it's control where your shields go, that sort of stuff. It's just controls that, and when you actually go for this, it's not actually that bad. There aren't that many controls in it.
I mean, but in fairness, mate, there aren't that many controls in fucking Euro Truck, but it still does my fucking nut in.
Yeah. That's fun.
Especially when you then have to go to your mate, hey, we've all got the same kit. What button is it? I don't
know. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Gear down. What?
What's your accelerator set to? Clutch.
What?
And just as a note, that is default for Euro Truck.
Actually, that's the point. I could have put the accelerator. I didn't recognise them steering wheel. I could have put my throttle on my accelerator. But it feels better on the control on the throttle.
Yeah. What? Yeah. So my brain just went there.
Yeah.
You could have put it on the accelerator, but it feels better on the.
My hand throttle versus my foot accelerator.
Oh, there you go. Fuck it. Sorry, my brain just went there. I was like, "What's he on about?" That's the thing. Like that's what it does. What? Ram? Don't do this to me. Yeah, that'd be great if I push the thing that goes forwards. that makes me go forwards. Yeah, I should have mapped it to that instead of the thing that makes me go forwards.
Yeah.
What?
Exactly. Exactly.
Mate. No, I see that. I'm not a huge Star Wars guy either. I probably know a bit more about it than you. But when I saw that game, I was like, oh, that wouldn't be too. Again, because I thought simplified Elite Dangerous, really, and with a Star Wars coat of paint.
It is, yeah. It is. It's. Yeah, it is. It is basically that's bacon, but it works. And let's be honest, Elite Dangerous is more complicated because also itself is more complicated. You're not just. It's not just about space battles. It's also flying between systems, doing trade, and so forth. It's a full on simulator. Whereas this is more like, what do I need to do to, what do I need to do to make your game fun and make you enjoy playing space combat battles? It's the same as like, we could simulate having to clean your weapon out, but in a game where you're just going to be shooting people, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So.
Don't know why, but that makes me want to play Into the Radius. Was it Into the Radius?
Into the Radius, yeah, it's a good game.
Apparently, that's now on Quest 2.
Is it?
I think there's an actual standalone version of that now.
Yeah.
Good job, guys.
Into the Radius would be awesome in multiplayer.
Agreed. I've got it. I just haven't played it yet. Like
yeah,
I've seen all the things for it because that's the one where they put in the acoustic guitar, I think.
Yeah. That'd be awesome. You and your mates sort of exploring this sort of environment, having to sort of like, oh, it's getting dark, we better hunker down and sort of like, well, while it's dark, we'll sort our ammo out, get our magazines reset up and get ready for like next day's combat. That's all like my dream multiplayer experience would be like, sort of perhaps either hunting things down or training things down, and you have downtime because it's too dangerous to go out at night, say, and you spend time sort of getting your weapons ready, cleaning them out, getting stuff prepared, get everything ready you need to, ready for playing, prepping for the next day ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go out and every encounter is dangerous. There's no sort of like just general mooks to shoot through and finish off and win. Every encounter is like a hunt showdown battle counter. When you come across an enemy, you need to plan what you're going to do. If they get jumping, you basically you have to desperately fight back or run away, and almost like the cars there aren't many, and there are lots of enemies in them, but they are all tough and more interesting.
Yeah,
that's what I want from a multiplayer game, really, because your mate's like, oh, there he is, right, let's plan ahead how we're going to get the drop on him.
Yeah,
that'd be neat.
I will throw out there actually something that I found recently, and a game I think we should probably go back to, even if only briefly. Sea of Thieves has done a bunch of stuff where, like, how before we had to do those tall tales, those long missions in one sitting, and they could take hours a piece.
Yeah.
They've now put in checkpoints. So a lot of the issues we had doing those,
cool.
They've now somewhat fixed those. But speaking of a day-night cycle, I never realized how much of a ball ache Sea of Thieves day-night cycle was until recently.
Oh, right.
Because my wife and my youngest and we've all been dicking around in sea, and there are times where you'll go below deck to, say, repair the ship. You've hit something, or you've been fired on, or whatever. When you go below deck, you can't always see. So there are times where you actually have to pull your lantern out, whereas I swear that I never had to worry about that back in the day.
No, I don't remember that. No, I don't remember that either.
These days the lighting is a lot more fucking like, you're like, oh crap, I can't actually see. I can't see. And because you know how I'm shade blind, there were parts in Sea the other night where my younger son was just blazing through this thing. I was like, I can't see. Like, I genuinely can't see. I'm stuck. I need someone to come back and help me. I need to get my lamp and because it was things started to get really intense, and it really did kind of put you into a panic state. But yeah, like a dangerous night cycle, amazing, like absolutely amazing.
Can you imagine Sea of Thieves when it got to night time, you had a choice to like switch off your lights, so you wouldn't be able to see very well ahead, but no one would be able to see you.
That's how
Or
it is.
leave them, or leave.
It is
Oh,
now.
that's great. That's awesome.
It's a lot harder to see you now.
Yeah, but that's awesome then, because it means you're like, oh, we leave our lights on, but we're just basically advertising we're here.
Yep.
Oh, that's awesome. That's the sort of experience. What it's like. What do we do? Do we like sort of like play it cool, slow ourselves down? Even like, do we just drop anchor and just sit here in the dark and wait it out?
Even the title screen has upped its lighting effects by the looks of it. Because my youngest logged in the other day. Do you know how I had that complaint about the Windows Store? Whereby when
Windows Store, what do you expect?
Yeah, occasionally when the Microsoft Store would have an update, it would corrupt launchers. And the biggest one was Fantasy Star for me back in the day. And you've had an issue with the Xbox app, haven't you? Where an update has failed and it's ruined the app. And you lost space, if I remember correctly.
I had so many issues with IDM. Well, the Xbox app basically is completely corrupted, and I couldn't ever reinstall it again.
Oh, well, there you go. Well,
I could reinstall, but it would never work.
Yeah, sounds about right. That sounds about right.
And I went for all the troubleshooting, I went for all things, and the end result was, the end answer was, format your PC.
Yeah.
Well, at that point, I said nah at that point.
That's what me and DeWald had to do years ago. So back when Fantasy Star Online 2 first came out on PC through the Microsoft Store. And there were a couple of other games we were playing through the store, but Fantasy Star was one that really got done in by this. So the Microsoft Store would download the initial few gigs for the launcher. You'd launch the launcher through the store, then the launcher would download the rest of the game. However, if there was an update to the store and they updated the launcher through the store, I'd say maybe 1 in 5 updates, maybe more frequently than that, would actually break the launcher, break the game, make it so that you couldn't start the game anymore, and then you'd have to uninstall it. With that said, it wasn't always guaranteed that you'd get that space back. You might get the launcher space back, but not all of the extra stuff that was downloaded in its place. And if you tried to then reinstall on top of it, it would break.
Yeah.
Right? That's the Windows Store. Again, my youngest son fires up the Windows Store on his laptop. Hits library. Okay, cool. There's a problem. It's not working. I'll restart my machine and I'll reopen the store. Reopens the store. The library button's gone. It's just gone. It's not there on the interface. It's just not there. Closes the store, reopens it. Oh, hey, look, the library button's there. Microsoft, please fix your shit. The Xbox app just being completely balked. Anyway, he had to delete the game and reinstall it from scratch. But on his old PC, he still had an old install of Sea of Thieves, and he launched the title. And I was like, I'm sure the title's a lot more atmospheric. Downloads a 7 gig update, and all of a sudden the lighting completely changed on the title screen. And that's when I was like, yeah, we are having to deal more with night cycles, and it is a lot harder to see things below decks and all that kind of stuff. It was all things we didn't have to deal with that much. Walking around deck and being able to turn off the lamps that are on the deck, and it's absolutely fantastic. The atmospherics in that game it's a beautiful game. Absolutely beautiful game.
That's what I want from it. I want games that have got atmosphere. I want games where I feel super vulnerable all the time.
Yeah.
No, I'm just one wrong decision away from being killed, and that's it. I want games that are, in a way, unfair.
Yeah.
In a way, I want games. This is why I like sort of Stalker. Stalker. It's punishing. It will
not unfair, difficult but fair. If you prepare, take it slow and steady. It's fair because the enemies have this exact same chance of putting you down as you do. Them. You can't Call of Duty and expect to win. That's one of the things like we say about Dark Souls. Dark Souls feels hard, but it's fair.
Yeah.
Go on, sorry.
Yeah. That's why I like original Stalkers. Stalker, when it got dark, and you couldn't really see. And there would be creatures and mutants out there which would prey on you. They'd look out for you and find and look for like light sources to prey on you. So your safest bet was basically to find a campfire, because you couldn't set your own campfire, but find some like other source around a campfire and just join them and stay there because you were safe, and just wait out the night. And if you had stuff to do, I mean, that's obviously a bit boring, but if you had stuff to do, like, you know, cleaning your weapons and sort of stuff to do in the downtime, that would make it pristine. If you had to sort of like sleep to regain energy, you know, can you imagine if we were playing a multiplayer game? It's like, okay, guys, right, it's dark now. We shouldn't get attacked, but we need to engage. So we're gonna take watches. So you two guys have a kip. I'll stand first watch, and then wake one of you up, and we'll take turns doing it, sort of guarding where we are in camp, because we're in the middle of this like hostile place, or perhaps we've hunkered down in an old building somewhere and we've set up a fire. That's good for it. Means we've got heat, we can cook food, but it's meant now everyone knows we're here. So we've got to be a bit cautious what we're doing and so forth. That would just be an awesome experience.
Yeah. I mean, that's one thing that I was told about Into the Radius. As I say, I've had it for a while, but where people have played it, because obviously it's just in VR, they're sat in their VR headsets and they will physically sit on the floor in a building in the dark, because they know that if they go outside, they're not going to be able to see that well. And if they, flick on a lamp or whatever, they're done.
Yeah, that is basically Into the Radius, because also the enemies are basically like black silhouettes. So at night, it's basically impossible to see them.
Yep.
When I was playing it, I hunkered down for that reason. I was walking along, all of a sudden I got shot at. So I quickly ran into a building, and I could hear the enemy hunting for me. I hear him looking around, and again, Into Race is pretty unfair. If you get shot, you're dead very quickly. I could hear him hunting for me, even saying things like, "Where are you?" He was looking around for me, and it was getting dark, and it's like, I'm just going to have to sit in here and wait out the night. And in the pitch black, so I'm literally sat in the corner, it's pitch black, I can't really see what I'm doing, just waiting out the night, so I can then next day, when it's a bit brighter and sort of like the battlefield's a bit leveled and now not essentially in my favour, but it's a bit more reasonable, I can go and sort of like try and work out where he is and get the drop on him. What I find about Into the Radius is, though, the enemies are... What I did find with Into the Radius is the enemies are... They're not affected by... Like, if you're in a building that's dark inside the building, they're not really affected by it. They can see you. If you're visible, you're visible. So you can't sort of like try and sort of... Because it's a bright day. In reality, if you're in a building with no lights in it, and it's a bright day outside, you're basically invisible. People can't see you. So you should be able to sort of very quietly sort of walk through it and have a look and see if you can spot where they are and get an idea of them. And perhaps if you had your mates, you could say, right, I can see him. You need to if you loop around that building, you get a drop on him behind him and sort of stuff. That sort of
opening every door is a risk. You might think you know where the enemy is, whilst someone's got sight of them. Yeah. But your mates don't know where they are. You can give them a rough idea, kind of thing.
And 1-on-1, it should be cat and mouse, basically. That's what I want. 1-on-1, it should be like you're trying to outsmart. Some of my best game experience I ever had was in a game called... it was a Delta Force game, and Black Hawk Down. Delta Force Black Hawk Down. And one of the things about Delta Force Black Hawk Down is the maps in it were huge.
Yeah, I was about to say, is that the one with the massive maps from college?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And so the best games I had in that, where I often used to go outside the map as a sniper, and I'd sit on the sort of a hill and snipe. Occasionally, I'd come across another sniper, and me and this other sniper would end up in a sniper duel, and I could spend an entire match, me and them, trying to play cat and mouse with each other. And you'd be looking out, just looking for the faintest movements. If you try and take a shot and hope you adjusted for the range or something. You take a shot and get them, and when you successfully killed them, it was an amazing feeling, because I've outsmarted this other person, and we're equally matched. We're going to be very cautious, but now they know where I am, so I need to reposition and hope they come back. And then obviously, then they get some shots on you, and you get took out, and you'd respawn, and you'd think, well, I know where they were, but if I was them, where would I go next?
Yeah,
and try and outsmart them, and sort of And when you like thinks, well, if I was them, I would go to that building next, and then you sort of like plan how you're going to get to it, and you go, and there they were, and you'd predict what they're going to do, and then you shot and took him out. Oh man, great! It was great fun experience, and you probably get between you about 4 or 5 kills the entire match. There's a whole battle ranging down below that you're not involved in. You know, people getting dozens of kills, but me and this other person,
that's the trick. That's the trick, though, isn't it? With games like that, and being a sniper in games like that back then, you could engage other enemies, but then you'd be telling the other sniper where you were.
Yeah. Yes.
So you wouldn't last that long.
No. But yeah, just oh, I loved. They actually made maps that were just sniper duel maps, where like you could have just loaded a couple of people would load in, and you just basically have a sniper duel. I saw duel my mates from college. We just had we loaded into a map. It was an all map. It wasn't a sniper duel map. It was an all map, but we're the only people on it, and we just had a sniper duel for like an hour. I think we got like three kills each. Because I remember shooting him in the leg. I spotted his leg just by luck. I was like, that's his foot. And Doubtful didn't care where you shot somebody. As long as you shot him, so I just shot him in the leg, and he was so confused. That was real fun. He's like, how the hell did you get me? Because he didn't tell you where you got shot either. I did the heart 10 that I shot him in his foot, which was just poking out around a corner. He's like, and he assumed I'd been was behind him. I was in front of him, just or to the side of him, I suppose.
It's like the old GoldenEye 007 dealio. When you had the golden gun, it didn't matter where you shot him. It was a one-hit kill, no matter where it was. Could be in your finger. It could be in your face. You could shoot him in the left ass cheek. Done, son. You're dead.
Yeah.
Good times. Good times.
But
go on.
But yeah, that's basically my golden game that I really want.
One day,
no one would ever play it because it'd be incredibly boring. But I would. I'm sure.
I don't know, boring, just tense. Because it brings me to a parallel. Like someone said this a while ago, and I agree with them that why would you play a first-person shooter when you can play a racing game? And I was like, what? Like, think about it. You're playing a first-person shooter. How long does your usual engagement last with another player? Couple seconds? If that. You see them, you fire, they're dead. They see you, they fire, you're dead. Job done. And you just have that just over and over and over and over again. Just really quick little bursts. Eventually you kind of get a bit like, you know? He said, now imagine you're doing a race. Hockenheim. Lap after lap. You found someone that can keep up with you. Neck and neck, wheel to wheel. Chasing each other into every turn. He said, which one gets more thrilling? Knowing that you could make a simple mistake and spin off and lose it. Or, you know, you're pushing it just closer and closer to the edge until one of you fucks up. Or until, you know, the race is over. He said, which one's more thrilling? The race or the couple of second firefight? And I thought about it and I was like, you know what, he's right. The race is more interesting.
I think the issue you have with racing games is you have to be lucky to find that person who's of a similar skill level to you.
There's a high skill ceiling in racing games.
Yeah, or just to make it fun, they have to. If you're both shit, it doesn't matter. It can be sort of fun and intense. You're both shit and you're both sort of a similar. But you have to be. The trouble is, if someone's better than you in a racing game,
that's obvious.
And you're going to have a very bad 10 minutes or so of racing.
Yeah, you won't even see them; they'll be gone. Whereas in a shooter, you can get the drop on someone. And
exactly, even if you're bad, you'll still unless you're really inexperienced, you'll still get a few kills on people.
Yeah, and
those kills will still be fun.
Yeah.
So I semi-agree with what they're saying, but I think the caveat is you need to really be up against someone who's equal skill level. It's a bit like I was of a friend of mine who's very keen into chess, and he's he's no grandmaster, but he's fairly well ranked. He's played a few competitions and so forth. And he was saying his hardest. He says I said, do you like just play it for fun? You know, just like at home stuff. He says, trouble is, if he plays against a non-normal person who doesn't play chess all the time, it isn't fun for him. It isn't fun for them because he's too good.
Yeah, sure.
And they don't. And they make so many stupid mistakes. He finds it boring, and they find it frustrating.
Yes.
Because there are very few people, or there are people he knows, or key in chess, they tend to do the same competitions he does. So the skill source ceiling, the skill difference is too great.
But then I find that to be quite an issue though with modern matchmaking. You know, if you win a couple of matches, all of a sudden it bumps you up to the next grade and you get steamrolled.
Yeah.
So 1 minute you were having shit tons of fun, ruffle stomping a load of people. And then the next match, you are the guy getting completely fucking, you know, you're getting dunked on every couple of seconds, and then it gets frustrating.
Yeah. I think that is, yes, matchmaking's got issues and so forth. I think that in a shooter, that is less of an issue than a racing game.
I don't think that's true. I disagree. Because playing newer shooters, that's exactly what I was just talking about. Newer COD games. You could literally be destroying entire maps full of people. And then the game goes, oh, you had a good run there. Boom. Up a couple of difficulty grades. You get completely steamrolled. You're angry. You're pissed because you're trying to grind things for your season pass. And all of a sudden you're now bottom of the barrel. You get shoved back into the shitty group again. Now all of a sudden you're steamrolling again. Then you get bumped up a rank. And you have this like yo-yo of, you know, and then I wasn't playing more so much to the matchmaking. I'm more to the, if you imagine a overlap between, like, if your skill level here, their skill level there, the odds you basically I think the discrepancy between skill level, it would be more apparent to stuff like a racing game than in a shooter. No. As you get into higher levels of shooters, you know, so you get out of, say, pretend bronze rank. Right, let's just pretend bronze rank is a thing. Bronze rank's where all the scrubs get. That statement is true in that rank. But then that curve, that skill curve, goes right through the roof as you go up to that next level. And if you ain't there, you'll know about it quickly. It's like playing Counter-Strike against an aimbot. You know, you will know very quickly you are not good enough. And it turns into frustration.
Getting to say at COD, you probably are playing against aimbots.
Yeah, well, there you go. On PC at least. But it's not quite as straightforward as saying, you know, oh, the low end player can do it, because even matchmaking in Hunt's broken, and we really enjoyed that. If you go up a level in Hunt, you know very quickly when you've gone up a level in Hunt. So I think it's more fun if, look, let's say for example 5 of us all got into Assetto Corsa, like, you know, 5 of us got into it, me, you, DeWalt, Zaber, Divine, or whatever, and we all go driving around and have a bit of a you know, we go from shit to somewhat decent. Same with fighting games, you know. But if you start jumping onto random servers, ain't fun. It's just not fun. Modern matchmaking just isn't fun, because you will find you're a big fish in a small pond, and then you go out into the open ocean.
I agree. Modern matchmaking, I don't think there's ever been a decent matchmaking system out there.
No.
Matchmaking in general just doesn't work. It can't. There's no one's ever actually sat down. Trouble is, they are too easy. They're either easy to game.
Yep.
So you can keep yourself artificially low, so you can dominate other people easier. Or they are so unsophisticated. They don't. Trouble is, they don't probably have a big enough pool of data to work from to work out how good you actually are. So they just have to basically guess, and they always guess wrong. Matchmaking in general is I've always found it's easier to just join a random server, and you've got a better chance of having more equal game than using a matchmaking system, because it just doesn't work. They just don't work.
Sure.
I think matchmaking. I think I'd be interested to know, and this is something that actually, and maybe the gamers have done this research. I'm sure they have actually. Would be to look at how good matchmaking algorithms are based on how many hours the players involved have played. Because I reckon if you're dealing with players who've put in 200, 300, 400 hours in a game, I would bet the matchmaking is probably pretty good because it's got a lot of data to work with.
Yeah.
But with a player who plays an hour a night, so, an hour perhaps once or twice a week, it hasn't got enough data to work with to actually tell how good that player is. So that's when I guess is wrong. And I think the amount of hours you need to put in to get a matchmaking to a decent level is so high that even someone who plays it fairly regularly would get knocked out. I would love to actually sit. It's a hypothesis. I have nothing to back that up at all. But I would love to see from the likes of, I tell you, it'd be good. That probably someone likes Destiny, Bungie, because obviously they have versus modes, don't they?
Destiny's matchmaking's bullshit.
I would love to see the data of how it rates, how it works, how good it is at matchmaking people, depending on how many hours they've played. That's what I'd love to see.
Destiny wouldn't be very good to scrape that data from, though, because it has single player content.
But is that single player content put into the matchmaking algorithm? Because we all know single players knows no replacement for multiplayer against other people.
Well, but then that's what I'm saying, because they do perform a type of matchmaking for PvE. And they use light level to calculate, I believe, parts of your matchmaking. And you can increase that just by playing single player. Again, I'm doing what you do. I'm pulling things out my ass at this point, because no one is going to tell you what their matchmaking algorithm is, because you'll learn how to play it. But I don't know, because I know people who have played. I'd say as you go higher in the ranks, you either find players who are genuinely really good, and so therefore matchmaking's pretty good, or you find players who are really good at cheesing one particular strat. The only downside is that as you get higher in the ranks, you find yourself playing with an ever-increasing or ever-decreasing pool of players. You're going to be playing against the same people over and over and over again, the same strats over and over and over again. But then I think we've all agreed that playing multiplayer games is best kept offline. Well, not so much offline, but best kept with a group of friends. The second you have to play with other human players from somewhere else outside of your vetted pool of friends, it's not as fun.
Agreed.
So I don't think matchmaking will ever be fantastic.
No, I think my suspicion of it is matchmaking is too complicated a problem, and it's not worth the investment in the problem.
Yeah.
The trouble is the amount of variables that. How do you decide what makes a good COD player? How do you decide what makes a good Destiny player? Do you just go by kills? That might not mean they're good. That might, as you said, it might mean they just have a good way of cheesing a certain map.
Yeah.
It doesn't tell you if they're good or not. Or you can, and there is probably. I just don't think. I think the big issue is that I think game companies and multiplayer just simply don't bother putting that much effort into investing into the main algorithms that sophisticated to find a good player. Maybe now that AI is becoming more of a thing, that perhaps they could produce an AI that we're actually analyzing will be better at judging what people can and can't do.
But again,
matchmaking them.
I think again that's more of an issue though on lower ranks. Because as I say, as you get to higher ranks, it kind of solves itself because the pool gets smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
It's mainly an issue in, say, the first, let's say there are 5 ranks, right? If you can make it to the top rank, yeah, it's going to be tight matches, they're going to be good, they're going to be on the seat of your fucking pants style thing. It's those first, the bottom 2 that are going to be the problem, because that's where people kind of, you got your uber casuals breaking through into the next level who then get steamrolled, who then don't have a good time. Those are the people you have to try and satisfy.
Yeah,
the majority of your audience.
The range of skill in the bottom ranks is a lot broader than the range of skill in the top ranks.
Exactly.
Yeah, I suspect it's a problem that is theoretically solvable. However, I think the effort required to make it solvable is not worth it.
Yeah. Well, again, as I say, the data set is fucking huge. So
and the thing is, every time you patch it to rebalance something, you basically might as well start from scratch.
Yeah. Well, they have that with fighting games all the time. Every time a new patch comes out, characters get nerfed. Same with like League and stuff like that. You could be playing a character one day that's fucking super hardcore badass.
Yeah.
Next patch comes out, you're nerfed in your bottom tier, and all of a sudden you have to figure out a new strat. And a lot of players don't want to do that because muscle memory's a thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, like trying to figure out an algorithm to sift through all of that data. As you say, every time you update. Like you'll never get a game's balance right ever.
Oh no,
ever.
No,
no one has ever done it ever. They keep trying. Oh, we'll nerf this. We'll buff that. We'll do this. We'll do that. And you're like, is that really necessary? Who was the company? There was a company actually where I don't remember the game, and or the company to be fair, and they were like, yeah, the players said that this move was overpowered, so we needed to nerf this. But instead, we changed this stat, and people went shithouse. But it turns out that was actually the thing that balanced the game. Oh, it might have been them.
Valve have said that about Dota. Often all they need to do is change a variable by something like 0.02, and that makes all the difference.
Yeah. Killer Instinct. I think it was Killer Instinct. They were trying to balance as a fighting game. The modern one by Microsoft. Yeah, they were saying how players were complaining about a certain move. And how it like, oh mate, it's broken. It's like, it's not the move that's broken. It's the counters that are broken. So they, instead of nerfing that move, they rejigged a couple of other variables in other areas. And we're like, bam, there you go. It's not a problem anymore. And they're like, the players were like freaking out to start. They're like, well, why haven't you nerfed it? Oh, that's why. It's like the changes aren't necessarily as obvious as you'd think. You could come across that one armored move that's like, oh, it's broken. It isn't, just you haven't figured out the counterplay to it yet.
Exactly. That's so that's an example of a developer who is putting a lot of time and effort to actually understand how their game works. And saying, whereas a lot of developers would have gone, well, the easiest thing to do is just to nerf it.
Yeah,
that's the easiest way around it. And we see, I see it all the time. You see in every sort of game system. Things are always overpowered and cheesy when they're being used against you.
Yes, but when you can do it as fun.
Yeah, when everything you do is balanced. Everything your opponent does is overpowered.
Yep,
it's cheesy or beardy, as we would say over here. It's what people. It's very difficult to balance stuff like that one. I mean, there are. And also, the only real way to actually have a balanced game is to basically make it fully symmetric game type. So,
but then that gets really boring.
Exactly.
Because that's what they did with the early fighting games. You had a character, a palette swapped character. That was it.
Yeah, and that is a balanced game because you've eliminated everything but the player's skill.
Yeah,
but it makes it boring. So you try and put characters in who've got special skills, special abilities, whether that's in a fighting game or in shooters, you've got character classes with different weapon types, or in a strategy game, you have different types of armies, got different abilities. As soon as you do that, you've basically entered in a horrific example of balancing the armies and strats, and somebody will find a strategy that you didn't think of because, you can't outsmart potentially hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of players. You can't outsmart them. Somebody figures out a random strategy, and all of a sudden that's changed dynamics. I mean, it still happens. I mean, things like games like that old, like StarCraft. Okay, it was only a few years ago someone discovered a new strategy in StarCraft that basically obliterated all other strategies, and that's been out years.
Yep.
and someone figured something out, and all of a sudden now that's the meta where everybody does. It's the same with 40k. An army will come out and they suddenly realise this army's got an unfair advantage to everybody else, and they buy all the tournament players will just buy that army because it's just the best
they
strategy.
had that with old Smash Brothers, and they found that Yoshi was Yoshi was always a low tier character, and they actually found out with a specific strat in place, it was actually a much better character than people ever fucking dreamed it to be.
And could you argue at that point? Then, do you argue? Is it a low tier character, or is it actually a high tier, skillful required character?
Yeah, there you go.
Play a character. Where's the difference? Is it there's like again, use for example, there are some armies which are considered, a lot of people will look on paper and think they look awful, but actually they're really powerful if you know how to play them. And you can, but on paper they look terrible compared to others. But trying to balance that is basically an impossible task, and people always constantly claim about balance. It's just not. You can't think of every eventuality. Maybe if you had a supercomputer, you could pop in the details, and it could just basically try hundreds of strategies and try and analyze and work out, and then it's spit out and say, actually, in all possible strategies, this character class fighter army wins 70% of the time. Then you can say it's unbalanced. But then is it trying strategies that you think it needs to try? It's a difficult one. It is the fundamental flaw is you will never have full balance. What you can hope for though is not too far out of balance.
Yep.
The range between the good and the bad isn't that big. But it's an impossible task. It is just impossible.
Video game balance, man.
It is impossible. Don't bother about it.
Just make it fun.
There was that one where it basically said, we're not worried about balance. It's what it is. It's what it is.
That was the old days.
Yeah.
Game came out, you couldn't patch it. It was, however you got it, that was it. And if a character was horribly broken, oh well.
That's what you say. See, this is what I say. If someone says to you, this character feels horribly broken, you just say, you just don't know how to play him. That's what you say. You just don't know how to play him.
Oh, mate, I would say there are a couple of characters in old fighting games that were horribly fucking broken.
Oh, no. As a developer, that's what you say.
Yeah, you just don't get it. You haven't learned how to counter him yet, scrub.
Yeah. Yeah. If you know how to play him properly, you realise he's actually the most powerful character in the game. It's not my fault you're too shit.
Mm-hmm. Good time.
Yes. How fast reaction times? 1/10 of a second. If you're actually 100th of a second, he's the most powerful character in the game. It's not my fault you're old and infirm.
It's true. It is true. I've noticed that dip, Ram. I've noticed.
Have you?
It's just not the same anymore.
Look, you're at your peak ability when you're 21, and it's all gone downhill from there.
Yeah. All my best years went when I had kids.
Yeah. Only now 4 years, and you'll just be doing Sudoku.
Mate, I haven't got the brains for that anymore. That's gone. That's already faded. Basic number puzzles, mate, gone. I now look at a child's maths book and I freak the fuck out. Look at a price label and my wallet, and I'm like, I don't know what to do.
Excuse me, Sonny, can you help me? How many frupnies is this?
And they're like, hey, Gov, you just point your phone at that thing and it does it for you. What?
One of my most favorite things with working in retail with the elderly people is when contactors came in, they used to say you have to people used to say, just wave out the machine, it'll work. And they'd
actually wave it.
They'll literally wave it across the machine, they're sort of gently brushing it.
Oh, bless.
It's like,
bless him.
Oh, yeah. I had the guy who did a little swiping motion, like he was swiping for an invisible card reader.
As you do.
As you do. As you do.
Technology.
What have you been up to then, Skazz?
Mate, honestly, if I had to be completely honest, not a lot, because the last couple of weeks has been hectic for me. Because my baby boys have had school trips, and so they've had long distance coach rides. They've been disconnected from their devices, and you know what kids are like these days. You know, you take them away from the internet, and all of a sudden it's like they're bleeding out over the floor. So my youngest son went on a trip a couple of weeks ago, and when he came back, he said, "Dad, that was the trip in was fucking miserable." I was like, "All right, I figured it would be because none of your devices had internet, and most things these days require the internet. You know, you can't listen to the music unless you've got the internet to stream it. You can't watch a film unless you've got internet to stream it. All that kind of stuff, right?" And because I'm one of those annoying parents that I haven't bought my children phones yet. So they don't have data connections.
Probably for the best.
I just don't see the point. They're on the internet all the time when they're at home anyway. They don't need it when they're out of the house. They don't. Be a kid. Go do something. Get your ass off fucking TikTok. Just piss off. Go fall out of a tree or something. You know? Do something. Although these days that'd be considered child abuse, I'm sure. But
I was going to say that wouldn't work these days.
No. They have to go out and bubble wrap. But he said that, and then it was kind of a ding because my eldest son, he's on the other side of the country right now. And I was like, shit. What's he going to do for the 6 hours on a coach it's going to take for him to get from... Because we're on the East Coast. He's now right on the West. He's gone a long old way. What's he going to do? You know, he can't take his iPad or anything. So I was like, he loves retro games, and he's been asking me for ages to move his retro game collection from his PC to like his laptop, because he doesn't play his PC that much anymore. His PC's a bit long in the tooth. You know, it's a Sandy Bridge i7. You know, the old 2000 series. We're now on the 13, so that should give you an idea of how old these machines are, right? I mean, you can still play modern games on them, but you know, and he plays everything from, you know, Atari all the way up to PS2 on these old PCs, right? And I was like, what are modern handhelds like? Because I wanted to build them when the pandemic hit. I wanted to build them Raspberry Pi Zeros, and you know the Raspberry Pi, the little single board computer. Yep. They released the Raspberry Pi Zero based on the Model 1 Raspberry Pi, and it was just literally like a thumbstick sized computer. Mini HDMI, 2 micro USB ports, and that was it. Single core processor, that was it. And it could play everything up to PlayStation 1. And you could buy one of those for like a $5. Then they released the Raspberry Pi 2W. Raspberry Pi 2W, I think is what it was called, or whatever. And it was basically the same kind of thing, like a little, you know, put 2 fingers together, that's the size of your computer. But instead it had the Raspberry Pi 3 quad-core chip in it. And that thing was capable of playing, you know, PlayStation, some Dreamcast, a bit of PSP, that kind of thing. I wanted to build them little micro consoles based on those. But when we hit the chip shortage, you couldn't buy, and still can't buy, Raspberry Pi computers to save your life. So I've got all the cases and all the controls and stuff. Couldn't build them for them. So they could like take this little console, this little stick with them to like their grandmas or whatever, and they'd have like thousands and thousands and thousands of games. All the ISO dumps we've done, all the ROM dumps we've done, all the stuff that we've had patched up from, you know, Japanese carts and stuff like that. They could do that. I've always had a thing for emulation machines, and my boys really like them too. And so I start looking around for like, what can I buy instead for them? And I run into this thing called a Mivoo Mini, which is, imagine like a little Game Boy thing. Because as I said, my children don't have phones. Someone would say, well, why don't you just install an emulator on a phone and give them a control pad and they'll be good to go. My boys don't own phones. And iOS just emulation. No, peasant, you don't want to do that. You want to spend money on official Apple games. No. We find the Mivoo Mini. It's, if you were to buy it directly from China, between 40 and 70 quid. It's just a little Game Boy size thing with like a little 2.8-inch screen. And it plays a bunch of emulators, all the way from like Atari up to PlayStation, kind of like the original Raspberry Pi. Same kind of groove, really. Can't get. They released the Mivoo Mini Plus. The Mivoo Mini Plus is the same thing, but instead of a 2.8-inch display, I think it's something like a 3.2 inch IPS. No, 3.5 inch IPS display at 640 by 480. So it's a fair bit bigger. But you can play all your PlayStation games, all your NES games, Atari games, Mega Drive games, Game Boy Advance games, all that kind of stuff. You can't play PlayStation 2, you can't play Dreamcast, you can't play like stuff like that, but all of the Game Boys, all the portable hardware, up until the Game Boy Advance, PlayStation 1, Sega Saturn, that kind of stuff, you're good to go. All your old arcade games, you're good to go. Can't get the Mivoo Mini Plus because the Mivoo Mini was really popular. Everyone's just buying them up and scalping them. If you want to buy one, go on eBay,
right.
300 quid, right? Or I found you could buy them from China, slight markup. After postage and import, you were talking from like 45, 50 quid up to 75. Putting an order. Shit. It's not going to get here until the day after he leaves. Then it says, no, it's not going to arrive until June 2nd. I was like, well, we're basically fucked at this point. I'm going to have to look elsewhere. And so I then look up, I find another place selling things called the Ambernic RG 35XX. And it's basically the Mivoo Mini Plus, but with a slightly different layout. And it's got an HDMI out on it. And it'll have different software on it. And the only thing here is, if I want to get it on time, I either have to do the same, like, got it from China thing, 40 odd quid. Or, if you want it on time, here's some people already selling them in the UK, and it's going to cost you between 70 and 100 quid. I was like, fuck, that's quite a markup. But I wanted to get him for him. So I got my boy the RG35XX. We couldn't cancel the Mivoo Mini because that had already been shipped. It was coming from, I don't know, Donkey Kart in China. Funny because it was coming from Wuhan.
Oh, good.
So I might have got the next edition of COVID coming through. Next free sample.
Yeah.
But we get the Ambernic, and it is literally the Mivoo Mini. I think it's a slightly faster processor in it. The software's all right on it, as long as you install a custom firmware called Onion, which is a joke or a kind of a piss take of the Miyu's custom operating system called it's Onion on Mivoo, Garlic on the Ambernic. You get it through. Quickly flash the card. It's got 2 card slots, TV out on it. And as I say, it will play all of the stuff from Atari up. Whap a load of games on it. Thousands of games on it. And they love it. Lasts for about 5 hours. They absolutely love it. You can replace the battery on it. It's got a LiPo on it, 5 hours-ish. But you have to take the whole back off of it to take it out. But it's a really neat little device. He's taken that with him. The next day, I say to my younger son, because there's a school, all of a sudden it's a bank holiday and there's a school strike. 2 days he's going to be sat in the house like watching his brother play this cool little device. I ended up ordering him one. Bam! I'm now down 200 quid for these 2 little handhelds. And I was like, Jesus fucking Christ, this is brutal. Like I'm 200 down. But I set it up for him, and he really enjoys it. A couple of days later, there's someone in the UK selling the Ambernic for 75.
As is always the way.
Yep. Then all of a sudden, I get a delivery note. What's that company we don't like that used to be Hermes?
Ivry.
Yeah,
Every.
whoever they are, we've got a package from somewhere in China land.
Please take it off us. We don't want to get COVID.
Exactly. We'll be delivering it tomorrow. And I was like, oh, you've got to be fucking kidding me. So, long before my son was due to go on his trip, the Mivoo Mini turns up. And although I got that for less than the Ambernic, and I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of glad I got it for less than the Ambernic, because the Ambernic seems to be a little faster, even if the software isn't quite as optimized. But they both do basically the exact same thing. I can't stress that enough. If you can get either or, fantastic. The Mivoo Mini Plus has the added bonus that it's got Wi-Fi, so you can do net play. You can play your retro games over the internet with your mates. The Ambernic, if you want to hook it up to a telly, you can't play online, but you can hook it up to a telly if you really wanted to. So you know, there's that kind of groove. Software seems to be it's a toss-up between the Ambernic and the Mivoo when you look at the custom firmwares. The Ambernic is more obvious. The Mivoo has more options. But the idea, so I'm not really making any sense here, but the idea that you can buy one of these little boxes for about 70 odd pounds and play literally thousands and thousands and thousands of games is insane to me. You can have a pre-made console smaller than a phone that fits in your back pocket with pretty much every classic game you could imagine. Mind-blowing. Kids are spoilt for choice.
Well, they've probably got too much choice now, haven't they? It's just, what do I play? I don't know. It's everything.
Exactly. And my boys are still saying, like, hey, Dad, what console was this thing on? It's on PlayStation, son. Can this play that? Yeah. Can I have this game, this game, this game, this game? I was like, okay, cool. And then we go and find them and put them on there. And it's just, it's so fun, the idea that stuff that used to be limited to home console is now portable. That's one thing that's so great about the Steam Deck. The Steam Deck will happily chug along playing PlayStation 2 games. Some PlayStation 3 games as well. Emulation is absolutely fantastic. But as I say, the fact that there's these little inexpensive boxes, brilliant. Now, I could have built an equivalent, because we were talking about this before podcast RAM. I could have built an equivalent of the Mivoo out of a Raspberry Pi Zero. The case would have been about 50 quid. But then the Raspberry Pi, if you could get one, would cost you another 5 to 15 quid. Memory card would cost you another tenner. You'd be coming up to about the same kind of spot as the Ambernic and the Mivoo.
Yeah.
But then you'd have the option, if you really wanted to, of buying the Raspberry Pi Zero 2W, doing the same thing, or the Raspberry Pi 4, and ending up with something that can play even more games for a little bit more cash. But I was like, honestly, for what they are, this is phenomenal. A pre-made package. Because even if you build Raspberry Pi Zero, 5 to 15 quid. Case, 5 to 20 quid. Memory card, tenner. Control pad, tenner. You know, all the stuff you need to set it up is going to cost you more. You still have to have a screen if you go for the Raspberry Pi, unless you buy one that's actually built like a Game Boy. You're still talking, even on the cheap route, 50, 60 quid. Yeah. So I was just absolutely blown away. The kind of stuff the stuff you can do. These things aren't new. No. Repurposing old phone chips and stuff. I mean, I had something like the Ambernic years ago that looked like a DS running on an old version of Android. But the operating system in that on it was nowhere near as clean as what you can get on the Ambernic, and wasn't as pocketable as what you can get on the Ambernic. Just the idea that I could play classic East or Snatcher, the old Sega CD game, or Spyro the Dragon, or all of that, like, in my pocket. The Switch is a great console and can play remakes of a lot of these games, but it's not pocketable. I don't care what anyone says. It's not pocketable. Steam Deck, great handheld, not pocketable. Sometimes you just want to play a game that is an actual game, not just a tap on the screen thing. And these little things are brilliant. And the software is getting better every day. Support's fantastic. The community's pretty good. If you go to archive.org, there's a pre-made image for both the Ambernic and the Mivoo, where you just write it to a memory card, and it's got like 50 games from each console, like a selection of the best games kind of thing. It's just all on there. It's absolutely phenomenal, mate. If, like, let's say for example you're only like 10 years old now, and your parents are like, oh man, I'd love to show you these games. Do that. Get them an Ambernic, get them a Mivoo. Or if you're rich, get them a Steam Deck or a laptop.
Oh yeah.
You know, but for something portable, I mean, I remember the nightmares of trying to play an original Game Boy in the back of a car on a car journey.
And now your sons can experience it too.
But no, because they have a backlight.
Oh, that's lucky for them.
Original Game Boy, no backlight. That weird green monochrome screen, no backlight. Every time you'd be like trying to get to the next bit of the story, and you'd be kind of aiming the fucking thing out of the car window so you could like get the light on the screen from the passing street lamps and that. Or when you go to a car park, passing underneath the light to do the whatever, you know. Oh mate, can we park underneath that light so I can play my game?
I had a magnet screen with a lights thing that connected to it for my Game Boy. My old school Game Boy, my big fat chunky
Accessory that parents didn't want to buy.
my parents did.
Well, that's because your parents loved you.
No, my parents wanted me fucking quiet.
Yeah, they loved you. They didn't. They loved you enough to not want to kill you on a car drive. It's like like my wife said, you could buy accessories that would kind of get rid of this issue, where it was like a magnifier and a light, and then you'd bolt that to the side of your thing, but then that would have to have batteries in it as well. And the old school days of portable gaming were kind of wanky, and then your batteries would last 10 minutes because, you know, battery technology back then wasn't fantastic.
No, it wasn't so easy to write home about, was it?
My dad had the adapter for the car smoky jack thing, you know, the smoky plug, so I could plug my Game Boy.
I've known people to plug those in and have the car go boom, as it's blown a fuse. But yeah, I'm going off. I'm going off on a tangent. But these are like modern mega boxes, and if you told young me about any of this stuff, we've had this discussion before, talking about the Raspberry Pi and emulation and all that kind of stuff. If you told me when I was a kid there'd be a day when you could carry around every Nintendo game of your from when you were born to now, you know, you'd have thought to yourself, fuck off, old man, you're full of shit.
Yeah.
But my kids are doing it, and they're cheap.
So you recommend them?
Oh, God, yes.
I got the feeling you would.
But you can get them. So in the UK, I don't know how to pronounce it, like Droix, DROIX.co.uk. And they sell the Mivoo and the Ambernic. A lot of them are out of stock, or you can buy them from Amazon if you want to pay a little bit more and maybe get them next day and have that nice return window. You can get custom firmwares for them, onion and garlic, depending on which device you get. Just type in whatever the device name was that you buy, type in custom firmware or CFW, and yeah. And you could even find, if you go to that whatever that website was I just said, they also sell portable, like those handheld PCs that like compete with the Steam Deck, and they have like tons of other kind of retro styly things, going all the way from the Ambernic that will play up to PlayStation, all the way to stuff that will play Dreamcast, PS2, that sort of stuff. So there's loads of different flavors out there for you. Just depends what you want to do, really. If you want to go the custom route, just build something out of a Raspberry Pi, but good luck getting out of a fucking Raspberry Pi these days.
Yeah. Very true. Very true.
Which blows my mind, because I've been wanting a Raspberry Pi Zero 2W for fucking ages. But, oh well.
Well, you have to make use of an Ambernic.
Yeah.
So can you? So I mean, I've looked at photos, and they obviously clearly intended. Do they come like set up with all the emulators on it, or do you have to install that all yourself?
So they come with cheap ganky memory cards. You can, like, if you look on the websites, they have options like one with no card, and then you have to source your own card for like a $5, or you buy one with a card, and that will come with all the emulators and a bunch of games on it, and all the BIOS files you'll need to play those games. If you install a firmware from like Ambernic or Mivoo, that will come with all the emulators pre-installed. The Ambernic, I went straight away and installed Onion OS Garlic OS, sorry. The thing with the Ambernic is that the operating system doesn't install directly to the device. You can, or you can just boot it directly off the memory card. I just went from boot it from the memory card route. And so once you install it, it's pretty much all good to go. The Mivoo, on the other hand, you install your custom firmware onto the memory card, install it onto the device, and then on startup, it will ask you what ROMs and emulators you want to have on your list. So it'll say, what do you want to play? Super Nintendo, NES, Game Boy, Game Gear, Arcade, and then it'll install them. The Ambernic is smart enough to not display systems that you haven't got games in their folder. The Mivoo's custom firmware doesn't appear to do that by default, which kind of annoyed me to start with, because I obviously installed every emulator on the off chance that I would put something there. The Ambernic's firmware basically does what the Raspberry Pi does. It will scrape the memory card, and if there's nothing in the folder, it doesn't show up in the list. The Mivoo might have that option, but I haven't really dicked around with it that much. They also have both of them have a neat little feature whereby. And the Ambernic's implementation is actually better than the Mivoo's, which annoys me because the Mivoo is the one that I have. If you press the menu button when you're playing a game, it will exit the game. When you then go to start the game again, if you press the A button, which is your general start game option, it will load up your previous save, the where you were when you left. So if you've got like kids or whatever, I've got to go do something, you just hit the button to go back to the main menu. It's made a save file for you. Even if you're playing a game that doesn't have like a save option in it, you can still do a save like that through the emulator.
Yeah.
If you don't want to do that though, you press the start button and it will restart the game as though you'd never played it before. The Mivoo, on the other hand, I haven't quite figured out how to make it stop loading the save state unless I actually manually go into the emulator settings and tell it to turn that off. But very, very neat little features, very nice little pick up and play things. And let's be fair, ROMs and emulators are really easy to find these days. The emulators are all just part of the software. They're all baked into the firmware. The ROMs and the firmware, you'll have to source yourself. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Your mate on the internet. Or, shouldn't say it, go to archive.org. They've got shit tons.
Yeah.
In fact, as I said, entire packs already pre-built for Mivoo and Ambernic. So break a leg there. And none of this stuff is difficult to source. And if you really want to, if you've got CD games, you can rip those yourself because it will just play bin Q files. And for ROMs, I don't look for actual cartridge dumps. There were devices like the Retrode back in the day, but I don't know what current day equivalents are. But you could literally plug a cartridge into the Retrode, or whatever the modern equivalent is, plug that into your computer, and then you can drag and drop, and it will just make a ROM dump for you. So you can play your cartridges and dump your saves, and play them on stuff like the Ambernic and the Mivoo. And write them back to the cartridges if you really wanted to. Yeah. Top
It sounds like, if you want to do emulation, it sounds like a must-have then.
Oh god, yeah. If you're into classic console gaming, like early day RPGs, early shooters, early platformers, it's all there. All there. Hundreds, thousands of games in your back pocket. hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of entertainment. You know, on a device that fits in the palm of your hand.
What more could you possibly want?
There you go.
Okay. Awesome. Anything else at all?
Nah, mate, that's it. Sorry, I went off on a bit of a
Cool.
waffle there.
No,
Just-
you're absolutely no. That's fine. It's good to know about it. We talked about it with the last podcast, and you say you need to talk about this on podcast. You say you're not doing anything, but you've been doing a lot of this. So you better talk about it.
Yeah.
So that's good. No, it sounds like I said. I said, I know you're into your retro gaming. Your kids love the retro gaming, so sounds pretty awesome.
Well, it's nice because, as I say, if you can't afford something like, I mean, it's not a case of like if you can't afford, but like if you don't want to go out and buy a Steam Deck, because Middlemeister has been talking about it. He wants to set up ROMs and emulators on his Steam Deck.
Yeah.
Well, the Steam Deck's just running the same software, RetroArch, which is an emulation package. It's the same setup as the Steam Deck. It's the same setup as the Raspberry Pi. It's the same setup as the Ambernic and the Mivoo. The ROMs work on everything. They're just ROM dumps.
Yeah.
So once you have a nice little package, it doesn't matter what system you play them on. It works on pretty much everything. So
Yeah.
you could be playing your game on your Ambernic or on your Mivoo, move the save over to your phone, move the save over to your Steam Deck, play it on your PC at home. It's ever expandable. If you just want something to dick on around now, grab an Ambernic, grab a Mivoo. If all of a sudden you want to upgrade to, like, say, PlayStation or whatever, PlayStation 2, sorry, just go out and buy a Steam Deck or wait until you can afford a Steam Deck.
Yeah.
But the option, that's just so many options.
Bought for choice.
Damn right. I love it.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for joining us this evening. You can find us on our website, randnerds.co.uk. You can find us on YouTube, youtube.com/randnerds, or twitch.tv/randnerds. You can check out our games night, which is this Wednesday. We'll be playing the new module in Demio this Wednesday, so you can pick up that. You can check out my Twitch stream at twitch.tv/thesuffolkgram.
And I'm twitch.tv/Skazz, SK4ZZI0US.
So, very much for joining us. We'll have our next podcast on the 20th of May. Come join us for that, and we look forward to seeing you there. Goodbye. Thank you.